So, guys, there's a very interesting exchange that I have been following on social media between Phumlani Majozi and the leader of Action SA, Herman Mashaba. It is a very interesting exchange, but at the same time, it's quite fascinating to see how this conversation is going to turn upside down simply because these two people do not see things the same. So we are going to start with this video that was released by Phumlani Majozi last week. And in this video, Phumlani Majozi is going to talk about black people and the priorities of black people. After watching this video, we are going to get to the response of Herman Mashaba that actually led to the back and forth between Herman Mashaba and Phumlani Majozi. So guys, without wasting any more time, let's just get to the video. Okay, let me open the volume.
Whenever they are surveyed, they are clear, black people, what they want. They talk about jobs, they talk about safety, they talk about the end to state corruption. They complain that the bridges, the roads are not functioning in their communities. They don't talk about white people this, the apartheid system. They don't hear that from them, right? We are not going to go to the township and interview people and they tell you that, well, the National Party, FW declared, did this and that and that. We are not going to hear that from black people, right? In the rural areas, right? In townships. We are not going to hear it. They will tell you about what they live daily, right? What kind of life they live daily, right? They lose their relatives from crime. I have lost relatives.
So this is a video that was released by Phumlani Majozi. And guys, what do you think about this video? What do you think about this video, especially if you are someone who has lived in the rural areas, especially if you are someone who has lived in the townships? What do you think about this video? Because me personally, I agree with Phumlani Majozi, but I know why Phumlani Majozi is going to get the slack. Phumlani Majozi is telling the truth when he says that the people in the townships, they talk about their daily lives. They hardly talk about white people this, white people that, the national party this, the national party that. And this is the part that is going to get Phumlani Majozi crucified, because the politicians in this country, they want to believe that the people in this country, they are still obsessed about what happened in apartheid. But if you have lived in the townships, you know that these are things that people hardly talks about. If you come to the townships and have conversations with the people will tell you about their daily lives. People want jobs. People want to live in safer areas. People are talking about the infrastructure. They are talking about the roads. They are talking about the fact that it's 2024 and children are still dying in the pit toilets. And this is not us saying that people do not acknowledge the fact that apartheid happened. Apartheid, it did happen. But you will hardly hear people in the townships talk about apartheid. This is not something that it is a priority to black people's lives, especially in the townships. So after this video, Herman Mashaba responded to the video and he said that, I truly feel sorry for this young man. Is he going to be used by the National Party surrogates to do their evil work through his adult years? I met him when I served as the chairman of the Free Market Foundation as a bright young liberal person. I never thought he could be used for nefarious purposes like they have captured the Free Market Foundation. Some of us were not born yesterday. Divide and rule has always been the Nets policy, which they are now executing through the DA. This is 2024, not 1948. Some of us are resolute in uniting South Africa. So, Herman Mashaba says that divide and rule has always been the National Party's policy, which are now being executed through the DA. So, Herman Mashaba believes that the political parties, especially the ones that are aligned with Action SA recently, are not actually pushing the divide and rule. He says that no, it is the DA that has adopted this policy of the National Party of divide and rule. And some of us were actually not born yesterday. It's quite fascinating, man, because if you look at the response of Herman Mashaba, the response actually has nothing to do with what Phumlani Majozi is talking about. He is not addressing the issues that Phumlani Majozi is talking about, but he is addressing the man. He is not playing the ball, but he's playing the man. So Phumlani Majozi says that my point to you and other politicians is that you should focus on issues that matter to South Africans. Talk what black South Africans live daily. Nobody is talking about the National Party in the townships and rural areas. It's politicians who talk about that to manipulate and divide. Nobody is talking about the National Party in the townships and rural areas. It's politicians who talk about that to manipulate and divide. So I think right now, this is the case of politicians being totally out of touch with reality. Because the politicians, especially in South Africa, they always play on emotions. So that's why this issue of apartheid, this issue of the National Party, it is a very important issue to them. But when it comes to black people and their daily lives, this is not an important issue. This is not an important issue. We do talk about apartheid. I remember myself, I used to talk to my grandmother about apartheid. May her soul rest in peace. I would ask my grandmother about everything and about apartheid. We would sit down for hours and she would tell me that this is what happened in apartheid. This is how we were treated in apartheid. But at the same time, these are the advantages of apartheid because people were working and it was quite safer. You know, she would do the comparisons between apartheid and democracy to say that, no, you see, in this democracy of yours, you cannot even go to the shop with your doors open. You will find all your furnitures out. But back in apartheid, I would go to forget the flay and I would come back and everything will still be there. My grandmother liked to do the comparisons of apartheid and the democracy. But when, just like with my uncles, this is the topic that we would also have with my uncles. But when we are just sitting, so generally, this is not something that we would talk about unless I bring it up because I have always been fascinated to know what was happening in apartheid. How was the system in apartheid? How was everything in apartheid? I am the one who would actually raise this question. But when people are just sitting down, generally, this is not something that they are talking about. So I guess this is the point that Phumlani Majozi is trying to make, that please, guys, talk about the issues that matter to South Africans. There are a lot of issues today in South Africa. You look at the education system, you look at the infrastructure, you look at crime, you look at the open borders, you look at the corruption that has been coming, you look at the quality of the politics. Like, these are things that are impacting people's lives directly. As much as we acknowledge that apartheid happened, but it is not something that is a priority to us. So I guess this is a point that Phumlani Majozi is trying to drive home. So Herman Mashaba says that I feel sorry for you because you have been made to live in the National Party world. I really wonder what happened. Do you mean to tell me that apartheid never existed? Herman Mashaba says that, do you mean to tell me that apartheid never existed? So apartheid existed. So I guess this is the only thing that black people must talk about. Black people must not talk about the fact that they are living in filthy areas. Black people must not talk about the crime that is destroying their communities. Black people must not talk about the infrastructure that is still claiming their children and still claiming some of their lives. Because if you look at the potholes and how many people have died because of these potholes, like, black people must not talk about all of these issues. They must just talk about apartheid. And if you don't want to talk about apartheid, you are refusing that apartheid has existed. This is why Herman Mashaba says that, do you mean to tell me that apartheid never existed? So Phumlani Majozi said that, I have never ever said apartheid never existed, my very good sir. Never ever. I'm not sure how you came to that conclusion. All I'm saying is that focus on the issues that matter to South Africans. I have never ever said apartheid never existed, my good sir. Never ever. I am not sure how you came to that conclusion. All I'm saying is that focus on the issues that matter to South Africans. The National Party left power a long time ago. Stop saying things that don't exist. Not helpful, especially to black people. Okay. The National Party left the power a long time ago. Stop saying things that do not exist, not helpful, especially to black people, to perpetuate the notion that there is still a group of white people repressing black people. It is totally misleading and counterproductive. We are in control of our future now. We have been in control of our future for 30 years. We are in control of our future now. We have been in control of our future for 30 years. And I think this is the reason why black people, especially in the townships, do not want to talk about apartheid or do not want to dwell on the issue of apartheid, because black people, they feel like they have been betrayed by the ANC. Black people know that apartheid has existed, but at the same time, they know that this country was governed by the ANC for the past 30 years. They know the level of corruption of the ANC. They know how the ANC has betrayed them by actually turning this country upside down. So I guess this is one of the reasons why people do not want to dwell in the idea of apartheid, because they know that we have been with these people for the past 30 years. And what is it exactly that the ANC has actually done for black people? Of course, we know that they have done few things for black people, but when it comes to how the ANC should have moved this country forward, they've actually done so little. So Phumlani Majozi says that we are in control of our future now. We have been in control of our future for the past 30 years. Herman Mashaba says that just a 2 cents advice. One day these funders getting to you to do their dirty work are going to be exposed. Just take note of that. We are not going to unite South Africans by always only blaming black people. This country has a savage history which majority of black people embrace, including an apologetic capitalist like you. We are not going to unite South Africans by always only blaming black people. This country has a savage history which majority of black people embrace, including an apologetic capitalist like you. So Herman Mashaba says that no, this thing of yours of always blaming black people, it is not going to work. But I think black people always blame black people because they feel betrayed. They feel betrayed. That's why instead of saying, no, you see what the apartheid did to us. No, they are not saying that. They are saying they feel betrayed. And this is the reason why they blame black people, because they know that black people have been in charge of this country for the past 30 years. So Phumlani says that there's no dirty work that I'm doing, Mr. Mashaba. You know that very well. And yes, we should blame ourselves 30 years into democracy. When are we going to take responsibility? That's what I'm preaching. That's the message South Africans should hear now to improve their lives, their communities, and hold their leaders to account. You can't blame apartheid for the decay of our cities and towns, for rampant crime, for skyrocketing unemployment rate that lower to 25 years ago, for uncompetitive, ununionized public education that disadvantaged black children. You cannot blame apartheid for everything that people are talking about right now. You cannot blame apartheid for the decaying of our cities and towns. You cannot blame apartheid for the rampant crime. You cannot blame apartheid for the high unemployment rate. You cannot blame apartheid for uncompetitive, ununionized public education that disadvantage black children. You cannot blame apartheid for the fact that the ANC said black children, we need 30%, it is okay. You cannot blame apartheid for that. So these are things that the ANC needs to be held accountable for. These are things that actually fall into the feet of the ANC. Apartheid governance ended a long time ago and won't come back. Your rhetoric is not helpful to the black community. So Herman Mashaba says that I close my case with you. Just be prepared to face the consequences when your funders get to be known. So Herman Mashaba is still playing the man. He's not addressing the issues that Phumlani Majozi is talking about. He says nothing about all of these issues that Phumlani Majozi is talking about. So recently, Herman Mashaba went to Biz News to actually address this matter of Phumlani Majozi. I don't want to get into the comments because most of the comments were actually flaming Herman Mashaba, but I didn't want to get to that because I just wanted this conversation to be between Herman Mashaba and Phumlani Majozi. But if you go through the comment sections between those conversations, you would actually see that the people are saying that, Herman Mashaba, please, man, stop trying to say we don't want to acknowledge apartheid happened, but please just say that it is our responsibility for how the country has been for the past 30 years. So don't say that we just because we are challenging these people, you are saying, no, are you guys trying to say the apartheid never existed? Of course, the apartheid have existed, but we are not going to blame apartheid for the issues that you yourselves should have solved in the past 30 years.
Good morning, Chris, and really very upset and actually very worried about some of people being used to promote evil and polarization of our nation. And in the process, they insult some of us and insult us deeply with people with history. And people just take this as a joke, and it says, why is Mashaba worried about this? Because it's a fact, because they take this to really be a fact.
You are obviously taking great offense at some of the posts he made. I don't wish to repeat those posts, do you?
Well,
why do you say, I don't wish to repeat those posts? As if those posts were Phumlani Majozi sitting there and insulting him and Mashaba's mother. I don't want to repeat those posts, as if you talk about those posts, like it is something that is so offensive that people do not even want to talk about. Guys, we went through the post. Is there something that is so offensive that it cannot even be mentioned on a podcast? I mean, guys, let's be honest. Of course, let's say some of those posts, maybe they were not comfortable to Herman Mashaba, or some of the posts from Herman Mashaba to Phumlani Majozi, they were not comfortable. But we cannot say that, I do not even want to repeat those posts, as if those posts were so offensive that they should not even be repeated on the podcast.
It is honestly embarrassing. It makes me actually angry, Chris, because if this young man being used by evil people who created a mess we're sitting in for centuries, and I'm saying to him, obviously, his analysis and judgment of black politicians and making such a general statement. And I'm saying, are you using the same standards for white politicians? White politicians.
This is one thing that I hate. Like, I don't want. I don't want. Like, guys, I don't want to lie. This is one thing that I hate with all my life. You see, as black people, when we are sitting down and talking about the issues that are affecting us as black people, I hate it when someone comes and says that, why are you not saying anything about white people? No, this is not about white people. This is about the black leaders. This is about the black politicians, the rhetoric of black politicians, and this is between black people and the black politicians. Why do you guys always say, why are you not talking about white people? It's like when someone says that black people are committing crimes left, right, and center, and this is not okay. Then someone comes and says that, why are you not comparing that crime to white people's crime? Or are you saying that white people do not commit the crimes? Guys, as black people, can we not just sit down and talk about the issues that are facing us without even including other people? Why can't the black people just sit down and talk about the issues that are facing black people without trying to blame other races, without trying to drag other races into the conversation? Because it is not helpful. It is not helpful. It is not helpful. We cannot sit here and talk about the black politicians and the black politicians go on the podcast to say that, no, they are talking about us. Why don't they talk about the white politicians? No, the conversation is between you guys, the black people, and the black politicians. Why can't you just go on with the conversation as it is?
Who have for centuries used brutality, savage, rape, corruption, do we really use such measures? And I think we don't really have to really get there as society. I think the Phumlani must be very, very careful of allowing himself to really be used. He's a young black person. And honestly, we must avoid trying to really destroy him. But unfortunately, if these people who are behind him, they continue with this, they will leave some of us with no option than to hold him before an open court of law and actually give us evidence of the nonsense he's talking about.
So, guys, this is another thing. You know, Jacob Zuma has actually achieved one thing in this country, that if you disagree with everything that Jacob Zuma says, he has actually coined that phrase. What do they call it? The clever blacks. If you dare disagree with Jacob Zuma, they call you a clever black. It's either you are a clever black or someone is paying you to have these thoughts, instead of just addressing the issues that you are talking about. I mean, right now, Herman Mashaba is not addressing the issues that Phumlani Majozi is talking about, but he is addressing Phumlani Majozi as a man. And at the same time, he is implying that there are people behind Phumlani Majozi that are forcing Phumlani Majozi to say all of these things. He's not even giving him the benefit of the doubt to say that, okay, maybe Phumlani Majozi, maybe your line of thinking, it is wrong. And this is how we should actually, this is how we should debate, or you should be careful of 1, 2, 3. Why are people always assuming that there are people behind the people that are having different opinions? I mean, like, it happens with me, even with this channel. Every day you will see people saying that, yeah, Thomas, you work for the white monopoly capital, Thomas, your funders and everything. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, man, I do not work for funders. I'm only getting paid by Google to do this content on YouTube. I only have a contract with Google to do this content on YouTube. This is not this. There is no one literally behind me telling me what I can do. I mean, if I had the funders, maybe I would be somewhere in the mansions. Maybe I would be somewhere in the suburbs talking nonsense from the suburbs. But I'm still in the townships. I'm just an average young guy in the townships who is curious about things that are happening around me. So once we start having opinions that are not the same with the likes of Herman Mashaba, they quickly assume that there are people behind. No, there must be someone behind you, Thomas. You cannot think all of these things by yourself. There must be someone behind you. And I think it is not helpful to the conversation that we are trying to have. It is not helpful. It is not helpful. And I think this thing was actually coined by Jacob Zuma, and he has actually done a brilliant job of actually making people not question anything that he says. Because right now, when the likes of Jacob Zuma speaks, when the likes of when the likes of Julius Malema speaks, the moment you say, no, Julius Malema, I disagree with you, the supporters of the EFF are not going to say, no, Thomas, you cannot disagree with Julius Malema because of 1, 2, 3. They are not going to come with proper arguments to say, Thomas, this is what we think, this is what Julius Malema is trying to say. They are simply going to say, nah, you are representing your funders, there's people behind you. And I think this is not helpful to the conversation. It is not helpful to the conversation. It is not.
I'm a politician today. I have recorded 3 generations of stable families, from my grandfather, my father, who happened to die when I was 2 years old. I've been married myself for many years, and making such general statement. And I know the white politicians who've been rapists for centuries. There's enough evidence to that effect. But for Phumlani to allow himself to be used in this manner, it's actually irresponsible. It's very dangerous, because millions of black people have got evidence. I can tell you right now, why I actually even decided to raise this issue about him. I'm sitting on a regular basis with some of my aunts, to my grandfather's brother, who even up to today's a family, we don't know what the apartheid government did to him. This is a fact. Every time I say to sit with my with my aunts, who are now in their late 70s, 80s, when they're still young, the apartheid government got their father to disappear. So is he now taking those white politicians to be his heroes? Yes, absolutely. We can accept the failures of the ANC government the last 30 years. That's why some of us are in politics, to ensure that we correct this. But I think for him, my concern is that him and some few commentators and social media boards are being used. And one of those days, we will honestly
Why are you insisting that people are being used, man? Why are you insisting that people are being used? So it's either we agree with you or we are being used. People must agree with Herman Mashaba. If you do not agree with Herman Mashaba, then you are used. Basically, this is what he's saying.
To get some of the best lawyers to put them in front of the nation to really give us evidence of the nonsense they are promoting of us as black people to really be corrupt, that we don't have values of hard work. You know what? I don't need anyone to tell me of the value of hard work. I can speak for myself.
I mean, first of all, the reason why black people are always harder on other black people is because black people, they expect more from the black leaders. They expect more from black leaders. This is the reason why people in the country today, this is why majority of black South Africans are so harsh towards the ANC. It's because they expect much better from the ANC. You cannot expect black people to be as harsh as they are to black people, to be as harsh as they are to white people. I mean, people will tell you that, you see, if a white man comes and sabotages me, I'm expecting it. This is what people will tell you. That if an African man come here and sabotages me, it is fine. He's an African man. He does not owe me any loyalty. But if a black politician is going to come and lie to me and tell me that he is going to get rid of corruption, he is going to build a new infrastructure, he is going to build the toilets because children are dying in the pit toilets, he is going to ensure that our children have better education, he is going to fix the hospitals, and he does not do any of that, people feel more betrayed when they are betrayed by their own. They feel more betrayed when they are betrayed by their own. So you cannot expect black people to hang into what white people did to them during apartheid and forget everything that was done to them by black people in the past 30 years. I'm not sure if it makes sense.
For myself, I defied the apartheid government throughout my life, and I defied ANC corruption over the last 30 years. So I think, so it's going to really be up to him. If he continues, I've already briefed my the legal team.
So you briefed your legal team because you don't want someone to express their own opinions. What are you going to say to the courts? What have you briefed your legal team to do? To silence Phumlani Majozi, not to have his thoughts? I mean, guys, me personally, I disagree with some of the things that Phumlani Majozi says on social media. I actually follow him on Twitter. Some of the things that Phumlani Majozi says that I will say, okay, I disagree with some of the things that Phumlani Majozi says, but I cannot sit here and actually advocate for Phumlani Majozi to be silenced simply because he has his own opinions. Just like with the Penwell. I mean, Penwell, people disagree with him, some people agree with him, some people agree with him on this video, on the next video people disagree with him, but people are not pushing for Penwell to be censored simply because they disagree with him. So why is Herman Mashaba contacting his lawyers for something that is like this is an easy issue? Why are you contacting your lawyers? Are you trying to silence Phumlani Majozi for having his own opinions? What are you going to say to the court?
Very angry themselves to say, no, we can't leave this to really continue. Fortunate enough, we have the courts that we can all bring him in front of the court to give us evidence of the nonsense he's spewing.
So may I take you to Tswane, please, where there have been discussions with the Gauteng.
So this is what Herman Mashaba said about Phumlani Majozi. So yesterday, Phumlani says, no, Herman Mashaba, no. You cannot come here and say that I am generalizing black people when I say that like they need to do better. This is what you, Herman Mashaba, yourself said some time ago.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and all of the best. And I hope you carry on ensuring that black people in particular can embrace the free market economy and stop this nonsense of communists. Because communists, the only thing communists have ever done in life are mass murderers. If we tell black people, if they allow communists to govern them, they're going to murder them. You think 80 people be murdered today? Allow communists to take over everything. You will see mass murder at the highest.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
So in this video, we can see that Herman Mashaba is quite passionate when he talks about the communists. Quite passionate when he talks about the communists and what the communists are going to do to our country. But today, the same leader of Action SA is in bed with the same ANC, and the same ANC that is in alliance with the South African Communist Party. I mean, guys, it's here, like, that's why, you know, sometimes that's why I like to say it's almost as if we live in a simulation. It's almost as if we live in a simulation, because some of the things that are happening in the country are literally hard to actually digest. Herman Mashaba is warning people about the communists, that, guys, you, Phumlani Majozi, you must keep on telling South Africans about these communists. You must keep on warning South Africans about these communists, because the only thing communists are capable of is killing. But today, Action SA is in alliance, is in bed with the ANC, the same ANC that is in alliance with the South African Communist Party.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and all of the best. And I hope you carry on ensuring that black people in particular can embrace the free market economy and stop this nonsense of communists. Because communists, the only thing communists have ever done in life are mass murderers. If we tell black people, if they allow communists to govern them, they're going to murder them. You think 80 people be murdered today? Allow communists to take over everything. You will see mass murder at the highest.
It's a
So 2 days ago, Phumlani Majozi came back to social media. And this is what, you know, one thing that is so funny about this whole thing between Herman Mashaba and Phumlani Majozi is because Phumlani Majozi always goes on social media to write what he normally says on social media, and you will see Herman Mashaba there disagreeing with Phumlani Majozi. I think Herman Mashaba now hates Phumlani Majozi. So Phumlani Majozi goes on social media and he says that black people account for more than 80% in South Africa. Yet, there is not a single black politician who stand for basic traditional values of hard work, personal responsibility, stronger business productivity, stronger families, law and order. Not a single. How is this happening? Black people account for more than 80% in South Africa. Yet, there is not a single black politician who stand for basic traditional values of hard work, personal responsibility, stronger business productivity, stronger families, and law and order. Not a single one. So Herman Mashaba was like, no, man, I am not going to allow you to have this freedom on social media. I have contacted my lawyers, and my lawyers told me that you are not allowed to have your freedom of speech. So Herman Mashaba says that I humbly request you to remove this insulting and demeaning tweet of black people. Your bosses are going to get you into trouble soon. You can't expect some of us to ignore such nonsense. You are hired to spew against black people and not respond. You are a young black person to get involved in insulting our black people. Don't just use irresponsible generalization. So he's saying, Phumlani Majozi, get rid of that. Get rid of that. You are talking about the fact that there is not a single black politician who stand for basic traditional values of hard work, personal responsibility, stronger business productivity, stronger families, and law and order. Herman Mashaba says that remove that. Remove that. Remove that, because you are demeaning us. So Phumlani came back to say that I was speaking about black politicians, my very good sir, not black people. Black politicians have been incompetent and divisive, perpetuate the victimhood ideology, forever blaming apartheid for their incompetence, promote counterproductive dogmas that harm black people. And he's telling the truth, because here he says that black people count for more than 80% in South Africa, yet there is not a single black politician. A single black politician. So Herman Mashaba says you must remove that, and Phumlani says no, I was speaking about black politicians, my good sir, not black people. Black politicians have been incompetent and divisive, perpetuate victimhood ideologies, forever blaming apartheid for their incompetence, promote counterproductive dogmas that harm black people. So Mashaba says that what standard are you saying about white politicians? Guys, I think I have already said about this whole thing of when people talk about black politicians and what black politicians can do, they will just come and say, what about white people? No, we are not talking about white people. We are talking about black politicians specifically. You are specific about the generalization of black politicians. If you don't remove this post, you will compel me to report this and face the consequences in an open court of law. We have our dignity to protect. If you don't remove this post, you will compel me to report this and face the consequences in an open court of law. We have our dignity to protect. So it seems like Herman Mashaba is quite serious about taking Phumlani Majozi to court. He's quite serious. So Phumlani says that instead of taking me to court, how about you and other black politicians focus on the values I outlined? I think that would be more useful, especially to the black community. Even Phumlani himself is not backing down. He's not backing down. So Herman comes back to say that I cannot let you with the generalization of denigrating black people. He's not talking about black people, man. He's talking about the black politicians. Instead of taking me to court, how about you and other black politicians focus on the values I outlined? I think this would be more useful, especially to the black community. So Herman Mashaba says, no, I cannot let you with generalization of denigrating black people, being used by evil forces without consequences. As a young black person, please don't force me to drag you into the open court of law to provide evidence of your damaging utterances. If you continue, be assured that the necessary legal steps will be taken. So I don't know, guys. I don't know what kind of freedom of speech is this, because right now, one thing that is hammering is that if you don't stop talking about black politicians, I am going to take you to the open court of law. And one thing that you should realize is that Phumlani Majozi always says black politicians, but Herman Mashaba comes to say that black people. And Phumlani Majozi is not talking about black people. He is not talking about black people. He is talking about the black politicians. This is who Phumlani Majozi is talking about. The black politicians, not the black people. But it is easier to say that, okay, black people, so that other people can come and start hammering into Phumlani Majozi. But you should pay close attention to these small things. Then Phumlani says that I will say whatever I want to say on politics. South Africa is a democratic society. I won't be instructed by you or anybody on what views to hold. Not happening, my very good sir. I repeat, focus on South Africa's socio-economic problems, from bad education outcomes to crime. I will say whatever I want to say on politics. South Africa is a democratic society. I won't be instructed by you or anybody on what views to hold. Not happening, my very good sir. I repeat, focus on South Africa's socio-economic problems, from bad education to crime. So, if there's one thing that I've realized in this whole interaction is that Herman is just refusing to talk about the issues that Phumlani Majozi is talking about. He has never, even for once, addressed the issues that Phumlani Majozi is talking about, but instead, he has addressed Phumlani Majozi as a man. So, guys, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this interaction between Herman Mashaba and Phumlani Majozi? Do you think that it is helpful today that if people hold different opinions to the politicians, they will now be dragged in front of to the court of laws because they are saying things that politicians disagree with? Or do you think that what Herman Mashaba is doing, it is actually going to be a danger to the free speech? Because everyone in South Africa, they have their right to actually have their own opinions. People should not be instructed on what to say. People cannot be forced to have different opinions. If you have an opinion, it is fine to have that opinion. We cannot allow the politicians to say that, no, you cannot say this about black politicians. If you dare say that black politicians are incompetent, then we are going to drag you to the courts of laws. You are going to provide an evidence of what you are talking about. Man, if I was Phumlani Majozi standing in the court of law, I would just say, look at South Africa, man. Look at South Africa. What do you mean I will have to provide an evidence of what I'm talking about? Look at South Africa. Go to Twitter. Look, there's a page there on Twitter. There's a page there on Twitter that says there's a page there on Twitter that posts about Josie versus Josie. There's this page on Twitter. It posts about Josie versus Josie. These people will actually show you how South Africa has been destroyed. These people will just show you about how South Africa has been destroyed. Let me go to the post. They will show you how South Africa has been destroyed. You can look at how our infrastructure has been from, you can see now, Fontaine in Johannesburg. This is how it was in 2010. And this is how it is in 2023. Louis Botha Avenue, Joe Slovo. This is how it was in 2009. This is how it is in 2023. And there are a lot of pages that are coming up with Josie versus Josie, Durban versus Durban. People simply showing you how the infrastructure has been destroyed in this country. Just look at how this building was in 2009 and look how it is today. So if I was Phumlani, I was simply going to say, man, just look at how South Africa it is, man. And please tell me if you think that the black politicians have actually done well. Look at the hospitals, look at the clinics, look at the infrastructure, look at the kind of education system. And please tell me if you think that black politicians have done the best they could. Guys, what are your thoughts, man? Please tell me what you think on the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button. And the most important part, subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.